Hello, sports fans. Welcome to the Equity.Guru Investor Roundtable. I'm Rob. That's Galen. That's Chris in the far corner, contemplative. And that is Vishal upstairs. We're talking about investing in sports. Can you invest in sports? Well, I guess you can. We invest our hearts on a daily basis, regardless of what the sport is. But what's out there in terms of spending your dollars and turning it into income or long-term security? We work with different companies like Fans Unite, for example. We work with Title Gaming. These are kind of diversified areas of the sports world or the e-game sports world. Chris is in the wrestling business with NEW. WWE can be purchased on the New York Stock Exchange with Vince McMahon. You can actually, in a way, if you're a hockey fan, buy Toronto Maple Leaf stock, but that means buying Bell or Rogers, because believe it or not, those two companies have half and half ownership of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maybe that's part of the problem, bad karma, why they can't get out of the first round. And then, as Vishal has pointed out to us just before we started, you can actually buy stock in Manchester United, which is actually pretty cool. Chris Perry has a privately owned football team, FUTBOL, in England, which you cannot buy stock in. But
well, maybe soon.
Maybe soon, yeah. Take it public.
How would that work? Is it possible?
Crowdfunding, and yeah, it's possible.
It is possible. What's your general opinion of being able to buy Manchester United stock?
Well, I mean, I'm not against buying football clubs, as is evident, but there's a point where you wouldn't want your portfolio smeared in that much shit.
It looks like a bit of a disaster right now.
Look, you can buy stock in Juventus. You can buy stock in Glasgow Celtic. There are all sorts of football clubs out there that are actually public companies that you can buy into. The one thing that's really apparent from most of those companies and their charts is it's not a good investment. And I say that also as a private buyer of a piece of football club recently. You don't necessarily, you wouldn't go private expecting that you'd have the liquidity enough to flip your investment for a profit. And on the public side, you get a lot of people that buy the stock and then sit on the stock for 25 years. They're not making any money off it. There's no dividends because most companies in football, other than those at the very tip top, don't really make a profit. And sometimes even those at the tip top, Everton, Barcelona, lose tons of money because they're really vanity vehicles more than they are business operations.
Well, I would think like Man U or some of these football teams have these stocks just so they can maybe do like a raise, right? Issue more shares, get some more money, use that money for transfers to bring in, an 80 million pound Harry Kane or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. It doesn't necessarily work out that way in actual fact because, going to your fans and doing a raise because things aren't going so well is not such a, generally speaking, successful idea. You usually want to go out when things are going great. And in that case, you wouldn't need to sell shares. Generally speaking, the public companies for soccer clubs are mostly about fans wanting to be able to say, I'm an owner of the club.
Exactly.
You might get some sort of a discount on a season ticket. I don't know. But, tangential to the sports world, we've talked about WWE before. Equity.Guru has started and is running a professional wrestling promotion in Vancouver, which I'll agree is non-core and bonkers, but also going exceptionally well post-COVID. People are looking for things to do outside of the house, and we've caught a bit of a wave on this one. WWE, my thinking on it is that it's been trying to set itself up to be bought out by like Disney or somebody. And so they've let go of a lot of people that used to build up the roster. They've let go of a lot of talent. And they've taken on this attitude of they're going to pay athletes coming out of college to basically be trained as wrestlers rather than going and getting the indie guys that have already got an audience and then bringing them across. WWE prefers to own the rights to everything, their name, their look, their ring attire, and just go from scratch. The result of that is it's not a really great show, to be honest. I stopped watching WWE a while ago. and I'm in the business. It's imperative to me that I do my research, but I just don't think it's a good show. I think it's a trashy Disneyfication of what makes wrestling really good.
And you actually jumped to the elephant in the room question, which is the point of this whole thing, and that is it smart to invest in sports, like in terms from a stock proposition? So I mean, we can look at a chart or two to see kind of how they're doing, like WWE, but like you've already pointed out, it's not necessarily the wisest.
No. So like on the private side, when we bought into Altrincham FC in the UK, it was the highest ranked part-time team in the country on the 5th level, just below EFL League Two. And for mine, the price that we bought in at was exceptionally generous because it had just come up 2 levels, small crowds, COVID, a lot of things that are like unknowns. And what really attracted me to it was that I thought the team was first rate, like the management team as well as the team on the pitch. Right. And so for mine, buying in cheap on something that's just come up and was still thinking of itself as little, now it's sort of established itself at that level. It's now moving full time. We got them a new pitch. We helped them to build a sponsors lounge. Like it's an entity that is becoming bigger, and so our investment as a valuation has increased substantially as we've been going. Now that's the way I think you do it. You go in on something small. There's a lot of teams that do crowdfundings to raise a bit of money. The crowdfundings are usually bullshit. They're usually like, hey, you get a T-shirt if you buy the $100 round. You got to look for ones where you're actually getting equity in the company, and that's where you start making some cash. But you got to really rely on a bit of luck on the field, people involved doing the right thing, understanding the job, being good at what they do. Like a lot of football clubs, they just want your money because they need to pay a tax debt. They don't want your money because they're looking to expand necessarily. So going into sports is weird. Going into sports adjacent, like sports betting, which is blowing up in Canada right now, hasn't yet on the markets because when it all came out, it was overpriced. So it had to have some fall away, but now the rubber's starting to hit the road. There's some companies that I'll let others talk about. Esports is something that a couple of years ago people were talking about a lot, but back then I said this, I don't really see the financial picture on that as being one where you're going to be making a bunch of money. If you're investing in 15-year-olds not to get distracted by girlfriends, exams, and a barista job so that they can play Fortnite for a living, I think you're going to be misguided. So there's a lot of places to throw your sport cash. The question is always, are you going to make any money for it?
The whole gambling thing that's a whole separate show or two because it's taking over the world, and these umbrella companies become.
You can't watch a sports event and not be bombarded with advertising about gambling, and it's not even legal yet in most places, right? They're offering the PokerStars.net version of sports gambling, where you can go and pick your winners for free, maybe win some money, probably not. And they're hoping that you get addicted enough that you go and join the one that's based out of Curacao.
Yep.
Before I wouldn't mind having you look at the WWE chart, Michelle, but first, Galen, do you have any thoughts on the concept here?
Well, in terms of sports investment, I think if you're going to go into owning a team, it's done for the love and it's done for vanity. You don't go in looking for a profit. It's just, you do it because you want to see these guys succeed.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and that's the way it is. For the big kids like Man United, it's a billionaire's playground. For the small stuff, it's somebody who really wants to see the team succeed. They're not necessarily looking to become a billionaire off their gig. So, and there's, for me, on the note of investment, there's too many unknowns involved. Way too many unknowns involved. And they're legitimate. There's not to say that it's a bad thing, but it's just, there's too much in the air. Weather, personality, injuries, all sorts of stuff. So you can't count on that thing. However, you can count on people's greed. People love to bet for several reasons. 1, to win money. 2, to brag about it. And it will never stop. It's something that just goes on forever. So if you're looking at these companies that are developing their foothold and their foundations in this industry, and there are a few right now that are teaming up with Ontario, the provincial government, to help craft legislation and really see how it's presented in this country, these are the guys that you may want to take a look at. There's lots of growth potential. But as Chris said, just like every other new sector over the last 10 years, it's been completely bloated, and they're now trying to actually hit some normality. So hopefully that will happen soon enough. I think they are starting to kind of get there. Yeah. But yeah, find your way into an ancillary sector. That's the way to start making money off of sports. So yeah, look for the esports is not something to be investing in. It's something that is a promotional aspect. It will companion with other things to bring these other, like iGaming and the online betting. Right. It will foster those, but it's not the thing. So find companies that are getting in there and finding a different way to present the content to you and allowing you to engage. Inline betting, in terms of like, hey man, I'm just making my own bet and bet against myself. This guy, you know, I'm going to shoot this guy in Fortnite, or this player is going to make such and such a goal and not break their ankle before when they cross center line, right? There's all sorts of things that can be done to make it very specific and very much tailored to your own experience. So yeah, I think that's where the trend is heading. Legislation is a quagmire right now, but it is heading towards some sort of resolution. Whether that happens over the next 5 years or not, that's a big guess. My guess is that the forces at play right now are pretty well going to push it into fruition before that point.
The one thing that's in common with the small players like Chris's clubs and also in the National Hockey League, more than half the teams lose money. Mm-hmm. The Billionaires Boys Club, they're in it for value, as you pointed out at one point, valuation. So in other words, we suck, but I bought it for 60, and when I leave, it's going to be worth 400 million.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's literally why they're all in it. That's why they literally hold on to teams that lose money every single year, because their valuation still goes up. It's the same in all the major
people
sports.
Like tend to always go to the games, right? Like,
or it's all sponsorship dollars. Nobody goes to baseball games anymore. You're looking at an empty ballpark, but they suck the money out of the people sitting on their couch at home.
Have you seen the audiences at the Oakland A's games?
No, it's a joke. It's all sponsorships.
2,600 people turning out to a Major League Baseball game. It's insane.
The game's ruined on a personal level. Now, I brought up WWE. Chris is in the wrestling, but also just because it is an established entertainment entity. It is like a piece that is buyable on the New York Stock Exchange. What has it done?
You know, WWE, we might not like the product, but they're making bank. They just, every quarter, it's record profit after record profit. I think they just crossed $1 billion in revenues for a quarter, which insane. But again, you know, it goes to the whole idea of, yes, there's a lot of deals that they made with, I think, USA Network and Fox, right, for SmackDown and stuff. And then there's the other thing that they've been letting a lot of talent go, but also a lot of backstage, workers go as well, right? So they are sort of taking down the costs when it comes to the talent and the employees.
And highly commercializing the product to the point where there's hardly any event and all advertisements.
And the thing is, you know, you can bet on wrestling now. Like I've seen DraftKings ads on WWE now, where you can sort of bet on who do you think's going to win and what moves are going to happen. And speaking about DraftKings, right, the stock was trading at like over $70, and now it's under $15, right? So, it's trading at $13.50 on the U.S. market. So
everything out there is in that space is just damaged right now. I was just noticing that Enthusiast Gaming, EGLX, which back when esports was all the thing, became almost $1 billion company on the back of rolling up a bunch of blogs about esports, is now under attack from an activist investor, Greywood Investments. It's down 70%. They're saying they need an upgrade on the management and leadership team, the board. So they're all in trouble. It's still a $230 million company. And to me, that's a digit too much. Mm-hmm. I can't understand how they think that there's room to grow from there. It's definitely a downward trend. If I do look at Tidal Gaming, I think Tidal's something there. It's a $10 million company, right? Low market cap, decent leadership team, and decent amount of like teams that are out there. And they don't just make their money by like going into events. They make their money on all sorts of other potentials, sports flair, game scorekeeper. Like they're basically moving out into, as Galen said, the ancillary markets to try and find places where there actually is money being made off esports. There's definitely a big audience but it ain't what it was several years ago, which was basically a whole lot of promise and not a lot of delivery. Everyone's been beaten up, so now it's an opportunity to find the real companies that are actually going to move things forward and invest in them. I think Fans Unite is one of those. Stock has been beaten up, but if you come in right now, you're getting in at a really good time. Same with Title Gaming. Stock's been beaten up. Sector is beaten up. But a $10 million market cap, man, they don't have to do much to justify that.
Just how large can the NEW, Nation Extreme Wrestling, become?
Oh, man, like we had some news earlier today that is stuff that we were hoping to get in year 5, and we're getting it at the end of year 1. And I can't announce it yet because we're not on the dotted line just yet. But we bet that people were interested in getting out of the house and doing things post-COVID. Check. We bet that if we brought a professionalism to a space that's generally been sort of a carnival atmosphere and smell of an ollie rag, that people would respond to that. Check. We bet that there'd be sponsors that would be willing to come up if things were done professionally. Check. And we bet that the audiences would come out. So all the things that we hoped we could build over 3 to 5 years have been built over the first 8 or 9 months. And it's not because we're excellent, although I think Rob Fay, the guy that's doing it for us, is. It's just because there's opportunities out there, man. Like, if you're doing what everyone else is doing, there's no opportunities, right? The best you can hope for is to be middle of the pack. If you find things that no one else is doing and you decide to do them to the level of a martial art, there's always going to be a profit potential. And we've just hit it.
By the way, that May date will have passed because we're recording this just before that show. So, but the June date.
It was amazing. But June 24 at the Commodore, we have an amazing card. It's almost all sold out. And then after that, we've got the Hollywood Theater on Pride weekend. We've got a whole bunch of dates that we're about to announce, just getting contracts in place. But it's, man, if you respect the audience and you respect the people that work with you, and you put trust in everybody to understand the brief and deliver on a high level, then it's really amazing what can happen when you've got a really good team around you. I think at Equity.Guru even the same. The market's had challenges over the last 3 or 4 months. I put it out to all of our guys to pick their game up, and I keep getting notes from people saying, I haven't looked at Equity.Guru for a while, but Jesus, the content is great. So it's that NEW success story, the lessons that we learned, we brought across to Equity.Guru. And if I'm looking at the sports gambling world, I see Fans Unite is doing that same thing, like smart people doing the right thing, putting things in place. The markets are sucking them down. There's nothing they can do about that other than keep delivering. I think Title has been to a lesser extent, but the same. I don't think Man U is anywhere near. I think Man U sucks. And I'm hoping that they get relegated next year.
Well, maybe we'll see the Nation Extreme Wrestling IPO at some point down the road. Which would be
it's a plan. If we would put the Altrincham FC investment and NEW in a public vehicle and sort of focus it as a fan-based sports group, that's ultimately my plan. There might be room for another 1 or 2 things in there, maybe a minor hockey team or something like that. But I think people will come out for an IPO that's different. That if you're a fan of wrestling and you want to own a part of the wrestling company, great. Maybe you get a discount to a show if you've got stock in the company. Yeah. Whenever I talk to people about this, they were in the markets. So it's a really interesting level of interest because, we've seen the same company so many fucking times, again and again and again. And it's like, I'm astounded that today, understanding how many people drink artisan beer, that there's no craft brew roll-up, right? There's no one going out to all the little microbrews and saying, let's save some money and be part of one bigger group and take it public. Because back in 2003, a beer company went public and didn't do very well. So everyone's like, well, we're not going to do that anymore. I realize that I'm stretching time on this video out by ranting a lot, but you kind of put it all in my wheelhouse here, Rob. Anyway.
Not that long. I just keep asking you intriguing questions about the future.
I think interesting companies is a subsector all of itself. You know, I'd like to put together a portfolio of companies that are just doing interesting shit.
There's
And
a lot of subsectors we're going to be covering, and in fact, this is kind of an intro to sports investing for sports fans that we'll do some content for, to bring in or to educate new investors. It won't necessarily mean the companies are sports, but the case studies will be sports related.
look, I think if you've got a spare 40 grand floating around and you're interested in investing in sports, pick up the damn phone and start calling the teams that you like and asking them if they're looking for investors, right? Not the big teams, because you'll get swallowed up there, but a little team, a semi-pro team, a team in the minors, you know, a junior hockey team in the Maritimes. Like, the most fun in the world is waking up on a Saturday morning and turning on the radio and listening to Ultrium playing on the other side of the world and wishing I was there. You know, like, to be able to actually go out to a local team that you've invested in, what's more fun than that?
Yeah. That's a wrap for Galen, Chris, Vishal. I'm Rob. Investing for sports fans in different ways, shapes, or form coming soon, and we'll also hit those interesting companies, and we'll hit the gambling sector as well. All kinds of stuff going on. We'll see you on the very next Equity Guru Investor Roundtable.
You always give me